Marcel Kittel, for a few years, was one of the strongest sprinters in the peloton. The 6-foot 2-inch German was an absolute powerhouse, winning 14 stages at the Tour de France and coming in at a total of 89 wins. More importantly, he's become an advocate for mental health. When he retired in 2019 at the age of just 31, it was because, quote, "I have lost all motivation to keep torturing myself on a bike. As a cyclist, you're traveling 200 days a year, and I do not want to see my son grow up on Skype. Family, friends, everything was too short, plus the permanent fatigue and the routine. I've realized this loss of quality of life more and more." As the years have gone on, he's spoken more and more about the pressures this sport puts on you psychologically. There are all these emotions that you're going through, but also not going through, because as a cyclist, you're used to the fact that you are suppressing pain. I think in the entire top sport world, if you honestly say that you have doubts, then you are weak, and you cannot show weakness. Even when you go to a psychologist, that is often seen as a weakness. That is not true. And as anyone who has tried to compete at a high level of anything, it does take so much out of you at all times, which makes his success incredibly impressive. Clearly, we are fans of Marcel and what he represents, and we wanted to talk about all his great moments in his racing career. But there's one stage that Kittel himself has called the perfect sprint. And so, let's take a look at perfection. The 2014 Tour de France spent the first 3 days of the Tour in England, when cycling was arguably in the biggest boom phase there. The consistent Olympic success, as well as the top-level riders, Wiggins, Cavendish, Froome, meant crowds were absolutely huge on every stage here, particularly Stage 3, which took riders from Cambridge University to Buckingham Palace, through Stratford, Canary Wharf, and alongside the Thames, which meant for the final hour or so, the roads were packed, full of people witnessing the race in London. The photos and videos from those opening days are staggering in the passion and the excitement on display. Coming into the Tour, Kittel has already won Grand Tour stages this year, going back-to-back at stages 2 and 3 at the Giro d'Italia. After a fever took him out of continuing the race, he was able to have a longer prep time coming into the Tour. He would come into that race as the complete team leader, with a lead-out train full of hitters, including John Degenkolb, an incredible sprinter in his own right, and a podium finisher at that year's Paris-Roubaix. Stage 1 was a stage for the sprinters, and truthfully, it was designed to give Mark Cavendish the best chance at wearing the yellow jersey for one day in his career. It looked like this would happen for a while, with Cavendish's Omega Pharma team controlling much of the race. Then, in the final kilometer, things shifted. Kittel's team, Giant Shimano, took over control, following an attack by Fabian Cancellara, echoes of Stage 1 from 2012. Around the right-hand bend with 300 to go, Cancellara is still slightly ahead, and Peter Sagan is the first to launch his sprint, Kittel on his wheel, and Cavendish is right there. But he's currently putting his full body weight into Simon Guérin's. As the camera cuts, the two of them hit the ground, an entirely self-inflicted wound that would take Cavendish out of the Tour. Meanwhile, Kittel stormed past Sagan to take the stage and the yellow jersey. But this was not a perfect sprint. It was chaotic, messy, not perfectly orchestrated. So we come now to the previously mentioned Stage 3, It's stereotypical British weather, wet and dreary. With 3.5 kilometers to go, Giant Shimano are in complete control of the race. Marcel is on the back of the train, ordering his men around. Flanking them are Lotto for Andre Greipel and Omega Pharma, who are now working for Mark Renshaw. Try as they might, neither of them can wrest control away from Giant. Even at 2 kilometers to go, when their train splits apart, clever use of a right-hander brings the full team back together, a magnetic pull between them, as Big Ben looms overhead. On the front is Degenkolb, an absolute freight train, single-handedly controlling the race. He leads them all the way up to the final kilometer. It's a right-hander, and Lotto gets a man on the inside, but the rest of the team isn't there. As they turn onto the mall in front of Buckingham Palace, Giant is the only team with a lead out still, with control. This is so incredibly important because this gives your team sprinter 2 things. First, a draft, and the ability to be near their top speed when they launch a sprint. The second thing is you don't want to have to be battling for a good wheel to follow, and you lack the ability to control the sprint. Everyone behind Kittel here, Damar, Renshaw, Christoph, even Peter Sagan, have to be hyper aware of each other and their positioning. Kittel, meanwhile, just needs to trust his lead-out man. And he has. It's 200 meters to go, and it's now time for him to finish the job. If this is a perfect sprint, all he has to do is go straight, go fast, and prove that no one can come around him. And there's no exaggeration here on my part. This is a perfect lead out and a perfect sprint. He made it look so easy, like this was something he can do in his sleep. And look, we like impressive sprints with cutting between riders, diving through gaps, but those aren't perfect. Those are caused by mistakes that need to be solved. This stage is, and should be, required viewing for every team or rider hoping to win a sprint stage at any level. And there's a lot more about Marcel we can and should talk about. But today, it's just about this one perfect sprint.